There are many great gifts of friendship, and I think that this particular Sunday is a big, enormous, lush piece of fruit that we all get to feast on in music and in word, to hear what is going on in each other's communities, to celebrate all that we have in common, and to just simply be together. It is such a joy to get to share this worshiping space with Temple Isaiah, and particularly to share our pulpit this morning with Rabbi Jordi Battis. Good morning, Rabbi.
And also thank goodness for step stools, for those of us who are under 5 feet tall. Where do we even begin when we are in the wilderness? This is the question that David and I posed to each other when we met to discuss our remarks for this pulpit and choral exchange weekend. Because in so many ways, we are in the wilderness right now, and it is so hard to know where to look or where to go. We are in the wilderness right now because that is where we are in our respective liturgical cycles, in the Christian community's Lent, and in the Jewish community's Torah reading calendar. The selection that was read earlier is from yesterday's Shabbat Torah portion, the portion Vayakhel, where it tells the story of the people bringing their respective gifts, whatever they can bring, to build the tabernacle, the Mishkan. It is as we learned in the time after the Israelites have left Egypt, after they have been to Mount Sinai, and they are facing a long, long time ahead of making their way through a space of chaos, a space with few clear paths and little clear direction about where they are to go, except for a vague sense of where they want to get to, which is a place they've never seen. And we are in the wilderness right now because for so many of us, we are living in a time that feels like it is without a map. Each day's news can feel like an assault from every side at once. How to know which things to respond to and which to take in stride, where to fight back with an attack and where to hold our peace. This is in part a wilderness of words, where words that we have offered with love, words like diversity, inclusion, compassion, taking care of those who are hungry, those who are in need, those who are afraid, where these very words are twisted and distorted to be conveyors of hate, where things that are done in the name of fighting anti-Semitism are themselves anti-Semitic, where things that are done in the name of protecting those who are suffering instead increase suffering, things that are done in the name of upholding justice that instead create further injustice for the widows, orphans, and strangers of our time, those without money, those whose sexual and gender identities are not those identified as typical, those whose bodies have wombs, those whose nations have not protected them. The Hebrew that the Torah uses to describe the desert wilderness that we are now in is the same word that is used to describe the confusion and swirling nothingness that preceded creation itself. The book of Deuteronomy refers to the wilderness as tohu, just as the beginning of the book of Genesis says, "V'ha'aretz haya tohu vavohu." The earth was unformed and void with darkness over the surface of the deep. In this time of wilderness, it can feel like the forms we thought we knew are being unformed, made void, unmade again into tohu vavohu. So what do we do when the very words we have used to guide ourselves no longer mean what we intended them to mean? In what direction do we lead ourselves when it is hard even to know where to look, and none of the directions look right? Where do we even begin when we are in the wilderness? I don't know. But I believe that our being here together this weekend in this space and time can give us the beginning of some answers. One of those answers, I think, is about accepting our moment. At our Shabbat service on Friday evening, David compared our situation with the protection of Hogwarts in the face of the onslaught of the Death Eaters. It's a Harry Potter reference for our time. And so I will respond with the voice of another canonical wizard, Gandalf, who, when the hobbit Frodo laments living in a time of such darkness, replies that he too laments this time, and says, "And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us." This passage, in fact, reminds me of the words of the book of Esther, which our Jewish community read just 10 days ago on the holiday of Purim. It's the holiday where we read and tell again the story of Esther, who speaks up in the face of tyranny. It's a holiday that says that one of the answers to what we do in the face of oppression is laugh when the only other alternative is to cry. It's about taking hold of whatever power we do have and seizing it in the face of powerlessness. Esther, a Jewish queen in Persia who has hidden her identity, faces the choice whether to continue to hide and potentially survive while her people are slaughtered, or to reveal herself and risk dying with them. Terrified, she tells her uncle Mordecai that she cannot possibly take such a risk, and he tells her, "Perhaps it is for just such a time that you were put in this place of privilege and power as you are. Of course, others will fight, but this is your chance. Don't waste it." We may well lament living in such a time as this one, but who knows? Perhaps it is for just such this time that we are here. It is ours to seize the blessing of being able to affirm each other person's being made b'tselem Elohim in the image of God, being able to affirm each other's power and potential and the importance of who we are and of what each one of us has to say. I think another answer to our question of where to go is from the passage that we read this morning, the passage from Vayakhel, the describing of the building of the Mishkan. Mishkan, tabernacle, comes from the root that means dwelling. It refers to the presence of God that dwells in us and among us. The passages that first give instructions on the building of the Mishkan and then that describe it being built are really technical and really repetitive. The Israelites are creating a portable sanctuary, and they do it by creating enclosures within enclosures made of this many lengths of cloth, this many cubits of planks, this many tent poles, sockets, rings, etc., etc. It's hard to see past all of the details and jargon. But looking past the technical construction manual, we find also repeated over and over that the people participate in building that tabernacle together. Those who are skilled and those whose hearts are moved, regardless of ability. Both men and women, regardless of gender, regardless of how much they had, as long as they were bringing their something. Their blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and fine linen, and goat's hair, and tanned ram skins, and leather, and acacia wood, and whatever those dolphin skins in the wilderness might have been. What they are creating will not be a permanent structure. It's not a permanent solution to the problem of needing to spend time in a wilderness. There's no such thing as permanence in the midst of chaos. But it is a temporary solution, a dwelling place for God that can move with them wherever they go. This meant to hold God and thus the people through their time in the chaos. They can create where they are. And what they build, temporary though it is, in fact parallels the act of creation itself. Just as God created order in the story of creation, making structure in the midst of the tohu vavohu, the Israelites create a space of order. That array of tents encircling tents is a miniature solar system in the vast barrenness of space. It's a structure and a sense of order that they can carry with them wherever in the wilderness they are. We too are invited to bring those gifts we have and to use them how we can. And finally, I think another answer to the question of what we do in the wilderness is being here together on a morning like this one. Here in shared fellowship across lines of difference, of belief, differences of narrative, we are building a mishkan. We are building a tabernacle where God dwells among us in and amongst our differences. We are working to be the change we want to see in the world with materials and abilities that we have at our disposal, knowing that even in the face of chaos, we can build a dwelling place for God. A space of care, love, compassion, creativity, and meaning in this place where we happen to be, knowing that what we build today may get taken down and that we will have to erect it again and again, but knowing that we're doing so in community. So where do we begin when we are in the wilderness? Well, we decide what to do with the time that is given us. Not a decision for all time, but for this time, this moment, and this one, and this one. What will we do to create kindness in this moment? What will we do to create fairness, justice, compassion? This morning we are doing it simply by being together. Or zarua latzadik v'lishrei lev simcha. We keep our hopes alive. We raise our voices high. We hold each other tight. We stand up in the night and be the light.